And that was the thing about the '90s drummers. They used to get upset about having to compete with drum machines, from the bar bands up to the weekend, working band. They would all complain about that back then. I got to keep up with these fucking drum machines. These drum machines are fucking me up. It's hard enough to be a part of a musician's guild. I'm a fucking drummer. And, now the drummers start using triggers and fighting back. And then you get a bunch of drummers that have octapads or or old school triggers that are taped on the tom heads. And then you get bands like Fear Factory or like anything from that era, and it's got triggers on it and it's beat mapped, and they clock it to the drummer's ears, and the drummer just goes nuts. He puts all gravy on it, and they chop it together in the early versions of GarageBand, and that's what it's about. Yeah, that's what those '80s bands were really competing against. You know, they were trying to cleanse the industry. I think when they brought in the drum machine and when they brought in the sampler, it was just a way to bilk and thin the herd and be like, we don't need all your entourage. All we need is this fucking keyboard, and we can make music forever. And that's what they did for like 10 years. And all kinds of bands were out of work. All kinds of. I'm a keyboard. I'm a bass player in a band. I'm a guitar player in a band. I'm totally out of work because of the drum machine. Remember that? It was a big fucking deal. I don't know what they argue about now. The shit's over with. Then you get those like pocket drummers that are offended because they don't want to hear a, a fucking click track, and you know what I mean. And you get all these different type of drummers, these hybrid drummer motherfuckers. That's what the '80s did with and as long as you had gate reverbs and a noise gate, you can make miracles happen in the home studio with a drum kit back then. But that was a lot of gear. It was easier to get the fucking keyboard and just chop heads, trim the fat, set it and forget it for a decade. Let the guitar come back if it's that good. And it did eventually, but that was it. The cat that wouldn't go home, the cat that kept coming back the very next night, that's rock and roll for a long time. You couldn't keep that shit down. They invented genres to take over rock and roll. Like I just said, well, that shit ain't never coming back. That's some wizard shit. That's Dungeons and Dragons. I'm in a band. You're in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. That's not a band. There's a eating snacks and fucking and make believing and blow bubbles and shit. I got a keyboard over here. We can get to the point. You want to do Dungeons and Dragons. You ain't got time to learn this guitar like that. Fucking hermit craft this fucking guitar.